Welcome to Soul Nutrition, where we discuss the various ways of nourishing our soul. I'm your host, author, speaker, and coach, Reina Rose. Today's guest is Aaron Walker. Aaron has founded more than a dozen companies over the past 41 years. He attributes much of his success to having surrounded himself with his mastermind counterparts. Aaron spent a decade meeting weekly with Dave Ramsey, Dan Miller, Ken Abraham, and 5 other amazing entrepreneurs. Aaron is the founder of Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind that now hosts 15 groups with national and international members. Aaron is the author of View from the Top, a must-read to fully understand how to live a life of success and significance. Also the founder of the Mastermind Playbook, an incredible resource for starting, running, and scaling masterminds. Aaron lives in Nashville, Tennessee, with his wife Robin of 40 years, and he has 2 incredible daughters and 5 beautiful grandchildren. Aaron, what an honor to have you on the show today.
Hey, Reina, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. I've been so looking forward to this, and just thank you for having me as your guest.
Oh, it's such a joy. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I am so excited for you to tell our audience a little bit more about yourself, how you got to this point of being a mastermind.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll take you back, and I'll try not to bore you with too many details, but I'm a native Nashvilleian. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been here 60 years now, and I just love it. People say to me all the time, if you could live anywhere, where would you? And I say, I can live anywhere, and I live exactly where I want to, and that's Nashville, Tennessee. It's just a great city. And it's a great place, and it's a great place to raise your family and my grandchildren. Both my daughters live 5 minutes from me and get to see my grandkids every day. My oldest daughter is the chief operating officer of our company, the parent company called View from the Top, and we have a great time. We get to see each other on a daily basis, and it's just amazing. But how I got to this place, I've actually owned 14 businesses over the course of 42 years. My first business was started when I was 18 years old, and then I sold it to a Fortune 500 when I was 27 years old, and
Wow.
I was able to retire. I said, hey, this is the American dream. I went from broker than a convict to being able to retire at 27, and that's pretty cool to be able to do that. But
Right.
my wife woke me up. My wife woke me up from a nap one day. She said, you're getting fat and lazy, and you need to do something. So I won't bore you with all the other companies, but a real pivotal time, Reina, in my life was really about 12 years after that. When I turned 40 years old, I was headed to the office, and unfortunately, I ran over and killed a pedestrian on my way to the office that was crossing the street in front of me. And I think God used that as a real tool to get my attention. And I started thinking through that. It was a very traumatic experience. I don't know if you've ever been through anything hardly as traumatic as that, but it was a awakening experience. It really changed the paramount, the dynamic of my life. And it was really a time in my life where I had to reflect and think what was important, what's not important. And I took 5 years off. I didn't do anything for 5 years. And
Sure.
Robin woke me up from a nap again. She said, you're getting fat and lazy again. It's time to go back to work. And we did. And then when I turned 50, 10 years ago, I decided to retire for the 3rd and final time. And in a mastermind group that I was in for 10 or 12 years with Dave Ramsey and Dan Miller and Ken Abraham, some of those guys, they said, what are you going to do now? And I said, nothing. I'm going to go down to the Caribbean, and I'm going to get one of those little tiki huts, and I'm going to rock myself into an oblivion. And Dan Miller leaned over the table, and he said, that's the most selfish thing I've ever heard you say. And he didn't laugh, and I kind of chuckled, but nobody in the room chuckled in the mastermind group. I said, what do you mean? He said, you've got all this business experience. You and Robin at that time have been married over 30 years. We just celebrated 2 weeks ago our 40th anniversary. And
Wow,
he said,
congratulations.
thank you. He said, you need to teach and train other people how to have that kind of marriage along with being a very successful entrepreneur. So I prayed about it. Robin and I discussed it, and I decided to coach 2 men. That's all I was going to do. One in Stephenville, Texas, one in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And started doing podcast interviews, promoting our business. and God just blessed it. It was amazing how he blessed it. And I couldn't scale one-on-one coaching, so we started a mastermind group. And now I know the bio says 15, but we actually are launching our 19th mastermind group. We're in 9 countries now, and we're helping people really understand the benefit of growing personally, professionally, and spiritually. And so we're having the time of our life today. So that's as fast as I can make 42 years go by and giving you an overview. But that's how I got involved in mastermind groups, when Dave Ramsey invited me to join his personal mastermind. And we spent 10 or 12 years together meeting in his office every week. And I was a sponsor of his show. I was his second sponsor when he first started in radio, and I sponsored his show for 21 consecutive years. And so we just became very good friends.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, I know you talk about the importance of choosing the focus of your mastermind. What was the focus of that original mastermind with, I mean, what a lineup of people in your mastermind?
You know what's pretty cool though, Reina, and a lot of people think that initially until I highlight this, they were not the people then that they are now.
Right.
And that's the whole benefit of being in mastermind groups. I met Dave in the early 90s, and we became friends when he started his radio show because we both live here in Nashville, Tennessee. And they weren't the big entrepreneurs then that they are now. And a lot of people say, yeah, who wouldn't want to be in a mastermind with Dave Ramsey and Dan Miller and all those guys? But I just want to point out that it's because of the mastermind group that these guys had such success. To their own admission, when you've got accountability and you've got people that are non-biased trusted advisors that are giving you input every single week, they're pointing out your superpowers, but they're also pointing out your blind spots. And when you really are heightened your awareness of your blind spot, then you're like, man, maybe I need to pivot. Maybe I need to change a little bit. Ken Abraham is another member of that group. And to date now, he's written over 100 books. I mean, he's written anybody that's anybody. He's the ghostwriter that's written their book. But what I'm saying is these systems and processes, this accountability that you get from masterminding allow you to have this level of success many, many times.
Well, of course, you know, the Bible teaches us that the victories are won with a multitude of wise counselors.
Right.
And so sometimes those wise counselors aren't going to approach you every time. You need to go out and either build it or seek them. And so I love the idea, not just because for me, I've had mentors my whole life, and especially at different times in life. You know, I've been at different places in the world, and I have some mentor over here, mentor over there. But to have a consistent group of peers who are growing at the same rate, how did you find each other?
Well, Ron Doyle was one of the gentlemen's name, Dan Miller and Dave Ramsey. The three of them had been in a Bible study for 2 years called CLC. And when they got through with the Bible study, they wanted to continue on. So each man was tasked with bringing in 3 men. And so that way they were able to get, 10 or 12 men to come into the group. And so you want somebody that has the same core values. Yeah. Diversity is good, and you want to have diversity. None of us did the same profession, but we all had the same core values, because if you're going to be in a group meeting weekly, if you don't have the same core values, it's hard to reach that general consensus. But when you do have the same core values, you're really wanting to go to a new level professionally and personally and even spiritually. You want to be sure that you possess the same core values. So the overarching theme was that. Your earlier question was, what was your primary focus? Yeah. And it was really primarily to be just a better man. And it was men in the group. And there's a lot of, gender neutral groups that you can get in. This group happened to be just men. And we wanted to be better husbands. We wanted to be better dads. We wanted to be better businessmen. But it started out with just the premise of being a better person.
And for those who maybe are not looking to lead a mastermind or start one, is there a website that you have or a resource that they could go to find masterminds where they're at?
Yeah, well, it's not really a resource there to start a mastermind in person. Virtual masterminds is what we do, and it really allows you a lot of benefits that people initially were unaware of, and I'd like to go over just a couple of those if I could with you. Geographically speaking, you may be in a location that you really don't have anybody that's got the same core values or the same interest. A lot of people live in small communities or small towns where they're not given that privilege of having a wide array of business people that they could surround themselves with. Some people live in suburban areas that, you know, it's just doesn't afford that ability. And so we started the virtual groups, and now we even have people that are in Australia along with somebody in Houston, Texas. They're on 2 different days, but they're on the same group. And some of the benefits of this is then you can kind of hand select who you want. One of the things that I wasn't aware of initially is that oftentimes in-person groups, you're a little timid about sharing because your banker may be in the room, your lawyer may be in the room, person that owns, you know, one of the community businesses, and you're like, you know, our wives play tennis together, or I'm doing business with the bank, and I don't really want to let that veil down. I don't really want to be authentic and transparent. Right. And so it doesn't allow you to share openly, but virtually you can do that.
Yeah, especially, you know, small towns and
right. Everybody knows everybody.
Right. And so I'm sure it helps to, you know, that person's all the way across the world. I can let that down. I can be vulnerable with this person. And, you know, heck, they don't even know anybody that I know. So I don't need to worry. Not that hopefully you don't need to worry about that in the first place, but
no, but there's
a level of trust.
We deal with things in our lives where it may be a mistake, but you may be caught in a situation right now that you didn't really want to be in, and you're allowed. Also, people in the same industry, a lot of people are timid about sharing, but if you're dealing with somebody in another country or another state, you don't feel that sense of competition, and you're able to share best practices, and you're able to compare notes on how you can increase your business. A lot of people hold their cards close to their vest and they don't want to share the secret sauce. But this allows you to share the secret sauce. Other people can get the benefit, as well as people in your group that you want to share with. And so virtual is another thing that I like about virtual, is that it eliminates the drive time. Like I live in Hendersonville, Tennessee, and I would drive to Franklin, which is 45 minutes away. We would shoot the bull, you know, for 15 or 20 minutes. So now I've burned up an hour and a half meeting. Then I got to drive back for an hour. So I've used 3 or 4 hours of my day. With a virtual call, we get on, you know, you're in Los Angeles right now. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. We signed on at the top of the hour, at the bottom of the hour, or an hour later, we'll sign off and we'll be through. We go about our task. And so it's a real time saver as well.
Absolutely. I was talking to you before the show, you know, when I did these all live, I was packing up all the equipment, going to the person's office or home or business, wherever it was, putting all the equipment up and cameras, and then folding it up and driving back. So to be able to do these things virtually, it is just sign on, read the bio, and have a great conversation that, you know, prayerfully people out there get to really glean something that will feed their souls and help their lives.
You know, Reina, some of the things that I wanted to mention on this is the value of the mastermind. And the value, there's many, many, many values, but one is the perspective, because you can only see it one way yourself. Regardless of how much you want to try, there's only really one way that you can see things. The mastermind gives you the ability to have different perspective. It also gives you access. Like you wouldn't have certain access to certain people, like Dave Ramsey, Dan Miller, Ken Abraham, Jeff Mosley. I wouldn't have access to those people. But here's the thing that I missed early on, is leveraging their audience. See, now not only do you know that person, but you can leverage all the people that they know. So your index, or your Rolodex, I should say, really expounds when you really get into these masterminds. The other thing is the accountability. For me, accountability is everything, because procrastination is the thing that really holds us back. But when I say, Reina, I'm going to do this next week, and when I come to the group, you go, Big A, did you do that? Did you get it done? Well, no, I didn't. Well, why didn't you? Because you told the group you were going to do it. Well, I don't want to come in there and say that, so I'm going to go do that thing, right? And we don't procrastinate any longer. And so I don't know about you, but there's some areas of my life I don't need accountability, but there's other areas that I need. Like health and fitness is one place I really struggle, right? Because I love to work and I want to do that, but I don't want to take the time to go to the gym or maybe take the time to eat properly. And I need accountability for that. I need people to hold me accountable. So I have a group every day. They text me and they say, did you go to the gym? Did you work out? Did you eat properly? Whatever it is for you. For me, it's accountability in that regard. Some people, it's business. Some people, they're like, hey, I can't focus. I don't have clarity. And they need accountability in that area. The other thing that we talked about earlier was the blind spots.
Yeah.
Like you may have things that you're really good in, but other people see you differently than you see yourself. And we need people to point out our blind spots. Well, the list is endless. I could go on, but I wanted to highlight 2 or 3 reasons that I think masterminds are important, because isolation is the enemy to excellence. And if we really want to excel, God created us to be in community, and we need people around us to help us.
Absolutely. I was actually just reading one of Rabbi Daniel Lapin's books, and he talks about, there's not so much homesteading anymore, because it's so helpful when this person milks the that person births the cow, that person milks the cow, and this person makes the cheese, and so on and so forth, rather than you having to do all these things by yourself, to have this community around you. We're not built to do everything by ourselves. I wanted to ask
Rabbi Lapin, I was going to mention, he's a good friend of mine, and I've had him on ISI a number of times, but Dave Ramsey used to bring him in person to our groups, and we would talk and have meals together, and I've built a relationship with him over the years. He endorsed my book not long ago, and we're working on a mastermind project as we speak together. And he's a great guy. I love it. I don't know if you were referring to Thou Shalt Prosper, the book that he's got.
I've been reading in tandem Thou Shalt Prosper and the one about business, how to win in business or something like that.
He's a great man. Yeah. Thank you for pointing him out. He's a great guy.
He really is. And I really am enjoying all his materials. What I wanted to ask you about in the masterminds, have you yourself, or have you ever run into anyone in the group who, maybe didn't go to the gym this week, and then they come back, didn't go to the gym next week, and then maybe they get a little testy with the group because now they're feeling a bit put on the spot, right? Which you put yourself on the spot. That's why you're in the group. How have you seen this, and how does the group deal with that?
That's a very good question, and it's ironic that you're asking me that question, because I dealt with this very situation about 2 weeks ago. We had one gentleman that came to the group. We'll call him Billy just for this. That's not his name, but we'll call him Billy. And Billy's been complaining weeks on end, months on end, and then even almost years on end. He's been in about 2.5 years about his weight. He wants to lose weight. And he said one of the reasons that he wants to lose weight is he wants to be around long-term for his grandchildren, which is a very noble cause, And so I really got on him pretty hot and heavy, and he bowed up. And he pushed back, and he said, I don't really want the accountability for this. I was just sharing one of the trials that I've been having, and it was a very tense moment in our group. Well, you don't know me that well, Reina, but I'll kind of get on you pretty hot, pretty hard, core. And he pushed back on that. And so I thought about it, and I've been facilitating groups for a long time, and I thought, I'm going to reach out to him. So the next day I reached out to him, and he was a little defensive when he answered the phone. And I said, Mark, this morning, well, there you go. We got his name. So I said, Mark.
We don't know Mark, which one.
I was 4 million Marks.
One.
And so, I said, I was in the steam room this morning, and I was just sitting, praying, pondering, and I started thinking about you. And I thought about those lovely grandchildren that you have. And the truth is that if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be here for them. And I said, I want to know what I can do to help you. Because there's nothing that I'd much rather see than for you to lose the amount of weight you need to, so that you're healthy, so that you don't have these diabetes that you're experiencing. And see, his whole approach then was different, because I showed empathy, and I showed compassion, and I showed love rather than getting on him. So the method by which I need to approach him is those things: love and compassion and, empathy. And so I think we've got to find out what works. And I think that's another reason for reading like the Enneagram and DISC profiles. We find out how to talk to people. And so then you kind of meet them on their turf, and then you figure out the way to help them. And he told me before I hung up, he said, Big A, I want to tell you, you have no idea how much this call means to me. So his whole demeanor was different because I approached it differently. So don't get just set in your way of handling it just one way. There's multiple ways that you can handle it.
And I know I have a friend who's in a men's group, and, you know, they can be kind of hard on each other, like
Sure.
just to hold each other accountable.
Right.
But then there's others that need a little bit more pulled back empathy.
Right.
And so,
Right.
yeah, and that's the great thing about, then you can hold each other accountable for that. Hey, you know, I noticed you really push hard. Maybe you could come back with empathy more. This is helpful. And that's the wonderful thing about having that mastermind group.
Yeah, the truth is that you've got to learn these things over a long period of time. And if I could share just a quick story with you. So it's a number of years ago, I was at the Ace Hardware buying something. It was on a Saturday morning about 9 o'clock. And we respected each other's privacy. We didn't call each other on the weekends. That was for family, and we dealt with each other throughout the week. We met on Wednesdays, and if we had something important to talk about, we would call through the week. And this gentleman's deceased now, but he was in our group. His name's James Ryle. And James Ryle, if you're familiar with Promise Keepers, he was one of their speakers. He traveled all over the world speaking. He was one of the best storytellers I've ever heard. He was in our mastermind group. And Reina, I was in a tough place in my life right then. I was in a very, very dark spot. And I don't know if you've been in a dark spot or not, but I was in a very dark spot. Mm-hmm. And I talked about it nonstop. Every week I would mention this. I would talk about it. I just couldn't get, you know, the victory on this thing.
Yeah.
And so he called me and he said, hey, Big A, he said, do you have a moment? And I said, sure. Hold on. Let me walk outside so I can hear you. And I walked outside. And I said, what is it? And he said, well, I know we don't talk to each other on the weekends much, but this morning I was praying for you and God gave me a word for you. And I said, oh, great. He said, but before I say that, I want to tell you that you're wearing the hell out of everybody in our group. And I just sat there and I started laughing. Well, he didn't. Mm-hmm. And I said, excuse me? He said, you're talking about this thing nonstop. We're getting sick of talking about it. We're tired of hearing about it. You're not taking any action, and we're getting tired of hearing about it. And I said, James, I don't really know what to say. He said, well, let me tell you what scripture says in Isaiah. In Isaiah, it said, take the chains from around your neck and move on. He said, it's time you were moving on. I'll see you. I got to go, and hung up. I was so mad when he did that. I said, he called me on a Saturday morning. He's ruined my day. And then I thought about it, Reina. Here's what I thought. I thought, no, he didn't. He loved me enough to tell me the truth. Mm-hmm. And so I started thinking about that, and I thought, if we hadn't had spent years and years and years together, he wouldn't have had permission to do that.
Right.
So the following week, I get to Dave Ramsey's office, and I walk around the table, and I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4", weigh 235. I mean, I'm a big guy. Well, he's about 5'9", about $155, you know, and I walked around, and he thought I was going to hit him. He did. He thought I was going to hit him. And I leaned over and I embraced him and I hugged him. Big tears come up my eyes. I said, thank you for loving me enough to tell me the truth. And it changed my life. I was able to get over that thing because of his stern love, and I was able to move on. And see, people get in these masterminds and they suck them for all they're worth, and then they move on to the next one. We can't do that. It's the long haul. It's building that rapport. It's building that relationship. It's getting to know that person, knowing their family, knowing how they operate and what's important to them. And then you can call them out and say, hey, it's time to remove the chains and it's time to move on. And we can't do that. Listen, the audience that's watching me and listening today, who is that person for you? See, if you don't have people weekly that you're meeting with, life happens so fast, and we just have so many things happen. We suppress it and we push it under the rug and we don't deal with it. And then one day we pop and we go, I can't take it any longer. I don't have an outlet. I don't have trusted advisors. I don't have people I can talk to. But the other way you can share this stuff weekly and you can deal with the issues, and then you can move forward and you can be very successful and significant in your own way.
Absolutely. I think, you know, there's a point when you go through a very dark, challenging moment. For mine was the death of my brother. He was my best friend. We were only 3 years apart. We grew up in the jungle of Brunei together. And I used to joke, you know, we were each other's best friends because most
Right.
of the time we were each other's only friends, right?
Right. Right.
And then when we moved back to the States, we just stayed best friends. We did everything together. That was just how life was. And, you know, so losing him was a brother and a best friend in the same both
Wow.
group, right? And for the longest time, that was, you know, and for a while, it was cathartic. It really helped me to speak about him and talk about him. I needed to do that. But there came a point when my story just became the girl whose brothers died, or whose brother died, you know, and that's what I would lead with. And that was my story, you know, whether I was doing it consciously or not, to gain sympathy and to gain attention, right? And so nobody called me out specifically. It ended up fleshing itself out, but I think it could have been called out much sooner if I did have that mastermind at the time.
Right.
And
Right.
I had actually a mastermind that I had put together before it happened, but I was the leader and I couldn't lead it anymore. It just collapsed afterward. But, you know, I think it's really important that we do flesh out the story and then get the chains, you know, remove the chains. And I wanted to talk to you about, you know, you were saying sticking in it for the long term, not just working a group for all it has and then moving on to the next one. How important is it, and how does someone go about selecting the right mastermind with the right people with the right values so that they're not feeling a year in, well, I'm not even sure if I really have the same values, so this isn't working for me. How do you avoid that trap of going from group to group?
That is a great question. One of the things that I think you need to do first and foremost is your due diligence. I think you need to move slow. Let's just talk about an in-person group for a moment. You have to ask yourself, if you're putting together the group, who are the type of people I want around me? Do I want people that's going to call me out, hold me accountable? Do I want people that have these same core values, which I do, because I don't think you can move forward without having a group with the same core values.
Right.
But I would be very honest. It's almost like dating, right? You start out slow, right? I tell everybody, you don't knock on the door and she opens the door and you grab her and kiss her. That's not the way it works in anything. And it's the same way with mastermind groups. You court them, you go slow, and then you dole out a little bit and say, how would you handle this situation? You have coffee meetings or dinner meetings, or you get the group together and you meet. You can do that. You can do, or like we do, and that's, we vet every person. And so I've already gone through all these core values and their mission statement and vision and values and everything on the application. So we have almost 200 people now in all of our groups, 10 people in a group. And so we're doing the vetting for people. So when they get into our group, we've already done that. So we can do it. The diversity is good. A lot of people say, I want people like me. Well, if they're just like you, we only need just you. And really the diversity is good. I talked to Jeff Hoffman. He started Priceline. And he said that 10% of everything that he reads every day has nothing to do with anything that he enjoys or anything to do with any company that he owns. And I'm like, that's interesting. But he said, what's ironic about that is 90% of his best ideas come out of that 10% reading, because we don't know what we don't know.
That's
and
right.
The doors that it opens, the perspectives that it opens. And that's the same way in the mastermind groups. We want more diversity, the better in the groups. We have one gentleman that has a very successful business. They do about $1 million a week in top line revenue. We have another gentleman in the same group that probably does $100,000 a year in top line revenue, but his family is solid. This guy's family is solid. He's teaching the gentleman that does $1 million a week how to do family well.
Yeah.
And the gentleman that does $1 million a week is teaching the young man how to do business well, right? They both bring a different skill set. And then there's just so many things that we can learn. I'm not a real artsy, creative type of person, right? And so I really get a lot of value out of those guys because they can shed light on how I should do my business better. I'm a very regimented, scheduled, detailed kind of guy when it comes to my business. And so I bring a lot of consistency to some guys' lives. It's like, I've got 42 years of experience. I know without a doubt some of the things that work and some things that don't work. And I encourage people to stay the long haul, work on it, work your plan, stay with it. Don't have the shiny object syndrome. So my point in saying all this is core values are important, but diversity is equally important so that you learn. So if you're trying to find a good group, go slow, interview them, be authentic, be transparent, be very vulnerable, and tell them what you expect. Expectations is a big thing. You have to really tell people what it is that you're wanting. A lot of people go, I'm not sure what I want. Well, we need to get sure. We need to,
Yes.
that way we give you the deliverables. We need to know what it is that you want. So I would just say go slow, be deliberate, find people with same core values, and tell them exactly what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. There were so many things in there that I just wanted to tangent off on. One of them, I know that you're a big family man as well, and that's something that you teach is how to have a better marriage. And I know this is a Christian show. A lot of people out there are married and looking to have a better marriage. What would be some of your tips for them if they were in your mastermind? What would you be telling them to make sure they do in their marriage?
Yeah, you know, Robin and I dated for 2 years. We got married 2 weeks out of high school. And so we've been together a long, long time, obviously. And we had some real trials in our marriage, and and no one's going to be married 40 years and not have trials. If you haven't had trials, you're going to have trials. It's just the nature of marriage, right? But the thing that we have found to be the most rewarding is the common denominator is Christ. Because my wife is very laid back. She's a very godly woman. She doesn't want to be out front. She wants to serve, you know, from the sidelines. Well, I'm a very dominant personality. I'm a high D on the disc profile. I'm about getting it done. I'm a hard charger. I'm kind of in your face kind of guy. And
what
oftentimes,
numbers are you on the Enneagram?
8.
And was she?
5.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm like all about making it happen. Let's go, let's roll, you know, kind of thing. And many times in our marriage, we've met an impasse, and we always go to our knees and we say, hey, that levels the playing field. Praying together is uncomfortable for a lot of people, and we don't practice it daily. We've gone years and not prayed together, but the most intimate time in our marriage is when we're on our knees together, because it absolutely levels the playing field. The other thing is I'm a huge believer in counselors. We've got one here. His name's Floyd, that lives in our city, and we've been going to him for 20 years. I'll go, she'll go, we'll go together. Other people see you differently than you see yourself, and you need to have a non-biased person that can look at your relationship and say, hey, you need to give here, or you need to give here, or you need to, you know. So I'm a believer in getting third parties involved that can help you navigate the waters, kind of a mediator to help you. The other thing is really important for us is to serve each other well. And I know that we all say that, but I'll give you an example. It wasn't too terribly long ago, several years ago, I did some things around the house, and it really looked good. I mean, this was top shelf stuff. And Robin didn't notice it. She didn't say anything about it. I mean, I know she saw it, but she didn't say anything about it. Well, I kind of got mad about it. I was moping around the house, you know, and she said, what's the matter? And I said, nothing. She goes, no, I mean, really, I mean, I've noticed a big change in your demeanor. What's going on? And I said, well, I did this, and I did this, and I did this. You didn't even say anything about it. And she looked at me and she said, did you do those things because you wanted to be noticed, or did you do those things because I needed the help? And I said, I wanted to be noticed. And you know, if you would do the right thing for the right reason, you might be surprised at how I would notice, how I would compliment that. And probably the reason I didn't is because you did it for the wrong motivation. And I think after you've been married a number of years, you see those things. And so I would just encourage people also to do this, and a lot of people won't do it, but I encourage people to do it. I created a spouse survey, and this is questions that you want to ask your spouse, but you're afraid to, and you ask the questions and then give it to your spouse in print form and let them read it. And some people say, you're crazy. Why would you want to start an argument when things are good? And I say, why would you want to live a fake, false life?
Right.
Why would you not want to deal with these issues? Robin and I don't argue like yelling and hollering and slamming doors and sleeping on the couch and all those things. We talk like we're talking right now. And we work through things, and we bring up difficult situations when things are going good, not in the heat of the moment, because if it's in the heat of the moment, I want to win. I want to get her back. I want to make her mad, right? And I say things that I regret. But when I say, Robin, have you thought about this? Or when you do this, it makes me feel this way. Or when you say this, I think this. Maybe you don't mean that, but when you present it, that's the way I take it. The other thing that we do is I've created another document called What Do I Want? And Reina, most people don't know what they want. Most people want bigger, better, shinier, faster. They just are trying to live the day reactively, not proactively.
Right.
Robin and I sit down
and definition to what bigger means or shinier
right,
even
right.
means.
Right. You may not really even want that. You may want the outcome from that. And so what we do is live our life proactively. We say, we want to make this much money. We want to live in this area of town. We want to give away this much money. We want to help these people. We do it very proactively. And when you do that, then you're on the same page, right? She's not pulling this way and I'm pulling left. She's pulling right. We're together. We're together. And so those are things. And then the last thing that I'll mention is some habits that we do. As I said, 40 years we've celebrated. We always go to bed every night together, always. And so there's been a handful of times where I've had to get up early or I wasn't feeling well or she wasn't feeling well. But every night we go to bed together. And there's a little stand on her bedside table that says, always kiss me goodnight. And we never go to bed angry. We'll sit in the den and we'll talk for hours about problems. But when we go to the bedroom, that's our sanctuary. There's no pictures of anybody else. There's nobody comes to our bedroom. We don't do any photography for our mastermind groups or our business. Our bedroom is off limits. There's no electronic devices. There's no TV. That is our sanctuary. And so no phones, no iPads, no TV, nothing. That's our space. And it's just off limits to everybody else. And I think when you do that, it respects one another well. And that gives you a level of intimacy that other people are not welcome into. That is your space.
Right. And that's, that covenant space that's only for you two. I love that. On a selfish note, give me a couple tips for those of us who aren't married yet.
Yeah, I would just say that look for a guy that is wanting to do the things that we've just discussed. Somebody that you're equally yoked with in faith, because the Bible speaks very clearly to that. Don't be unequally yoked. Look for somebody that has your best interest at heart. Look for somebody that wants to serve you well, somebody that you can grow old with. And I think if you look for those things and you really wait and do the right things that's God honoring, that God's going to honor it, he's going to give you that someday.
Amen. For all of us out there, there's still not quite there yet.
Right.
We can take those to heart. I want to talk to you about transforming lives intentionally, transforming our lives intentionally, being intentional about transforming the world. And get a little bit into how people can intentionally start their own mastermind and the steps for how to do that. Yeah.
Well, about, a couple of years ago, I got a phone call from a thought leader that lived in Dubai. And he said, I've watched from afar and even up close what you're doing. No one's ever scaled masterminds like you're scaling them. And I'm just really curious what you're doing. And so we had a good little conversation. He said, would you coach me and teach me how to do that? I said, that's going to take a long time for me to do that. He said, if you were, what would you charge me to do it? Well, I didn't really want to do it because I knew it was going to take a lot of time. So I threw a arbitrary number out there to run him off. And he said, where do I send money? And I went, uh-oh. And so I walked through the program with him and taught him and showed him how to do that. And the key component is transformation. Right. And that's the reason that people join groups. They want to change. There's things in their life that they don't like. They want to go to another level. They want to be a better person, either personally or professionally and spiritually in some cases. You don't have to be Christian to join our organization, but about 95% of the people are, and they're looking for some kind of transformation in some area of their life. And so what we try to do is not make the sale, but we try to add value. And so what we're always looking for is the way that we can help you transform your life. I coach people all over the world, and when I'm talking to them, it's not my right to change them the way I want them. The right is for me to help them accomplish their goals, the things that they're wanting to accomplish. Now, I can give them tidbits of information along the way. And most of the time I learned that by nature, most of us are selfish. We want what we want. We want, and then when you can reorient their focus, when you can change their mindset and help them not have a fixed mindset, but a growth mindset, and help them understand that if in fact we do help enough people get the things that they want, as Zig Ziglar says, we'll get all that we want.
Yeah.
And so my job is to help change you from being a taker to make you a giver. And then if you surround yourself with givers, you get all you want. The natural reciprocity is people want to help you. And so there's a transformational experience that they're looking for. It is so much easier to live your life with the right attitude that you're wanting to help others. You know, when I turned 40 years old, Reina, my thought was another retail outlet. It was another vacation home. It was a little bigger house. It was a little nicer car. It was all the tangible things. And I don't want to make it sound bad, because I love to have things, right? I love to have a nice house and go places. If you're broke, you can't help people financially.
That's right.
A lot of people say, it's not about the money. And I'll say, well, do it for free. And then they'll quickly recant and they'll say, well, I can't do it for free. And I'll say, well, then it is about the money. It's okay. It doesn't make you more noble when you say, I'm doing it for free. Daniel Lappin even talks about it in Thou Shalt Prosper. They give you certificates of appreciation. They're called money when you do a good job. And we're doing people a disservice when we're not providing a good job. So you help them.
Talk about it's actually a spiritual transaction.
Yes.
It goes into the differences between just a physical transaction and a spiritual, and that business is truly a spiritual transaction.
Yeah, and it's helping you discover that, and you're seeing that transformational experience. And so when I talk about the value of masterminds, it's just helping you get that transformation that you're looking for. And that's what we help people do on a daily basis.
And I think you're so right. I mean, to be able to see into what they want at that moment, right? When I teach vision board classes, or I used to, I would always, show this vision board of all these things that I put on there. And I mean, I was like, if this stuff works, I'm just going to put private jets and yachts and all this stuff. And then I start passing out pictures of me actually doing all these things. I ended up really doing them. And I admit to the group every time, like, I'm going to be honest, I was broke when I made this board, and every single thing on here was purely selfish. It was all for me. That was all I was thinking about. However, as I began to become more wealthy and have access to, I wasn't owning those things. Let me caveat that,
Sure.
and have access to those things. I ended up being able to, bring my parents along for some of these trips and have friends come along. And one of the things I liked to do was take people to Disneyland who couldn't afford it, because a family's like $1,000 or more, right? So I'd bring families because I enjoy Disneyland, but they got to. And so this purely selfish original board turned into, I also always said, I'll sponsor an orphan and go to Russia. And, all these things like actually ended up happening because I was so abundant and overflowing that I could think also a lot further than I want stuff.
Well, let me give you an example on a small scale that people can do, some of your audience can do today. And a lot of people say, well, if I had money, I would do those things too. And I just want to challenge your thinking a little bit. Money doesn't change the heart. It magnifies what's already there. And so what Robin and I did years ago, and this was very early in my career, is I started the Aaron Walker Scholarship Award. And I would go to the high school where I went to school, and it was actually middle school, and I would give a small scholarship to college that could be used to college to an 8th grader. And I would say, it doesn't matter your grades. The teachers are going to vote on this for the person that's trying the hardest, not for the person that has the best grades. And so we kept up with it for years, and we tracked those people. Many of them didn't have a hope to ever go to college of any kind or any kind of technical school, but they did now because they had a small head start. These people turned out to be nurses. They turned out to be various occupations that we followed because they had hope. Some of them went into the military and were very successful in the military. So what I'm saying is you can do something small. We're very intentional about looking for opportunities. I carry a handful of money in my bag, and when I'm out going to Starbucks, I'm always looking for somebody to pick up, or as far as picking up their coffee, or you're giving all the time. It's the mindset. It's you're looking for those opportunities. And I can't tell you the conversations that have happened. We do something here called Gratitude Day, where my grandchildren and I take them out the day after Thanksgiving every year, Black Friday. We go to all the nursing homes. We go all around and buy people gifts and presents in the children's hospital. And we do nothing for ourselves. It's about other people. And it started really a movement where people in our organization are doing it now with their kids and their grandkids. It's just being grateful for where you're at. And you don't have to do it on a grand scale. It can be small. But it's just changing your mindset and how to reach out and really be generous with other people.
Absolutely. And I think too, you know, a lot of times as you grow as an individual, and that's what these masterminds help you to do. And that's what I was saying about the board. You know, I grew as an individual from the time I made that to the time that things actually manifested. Right. And, but I agree with you. I always tell people when I used to, you know, travel the world all the time and they say, oh, when I have money, I'll travel. No, you won't. If you don't travel now, you know, go camping or something, you're not going to travel later. You have a little bit bigger car, a little bit bigger house, whatever you currently value will be just more when you have money. So I think it's so great that you're really working on transformation, inner and outer. You know, sometimes people like with the weight issue, but that's also an inner, you know, there's something inside that's stuck or unable to move past this identity sometimes of carrying extra weight. And so I love this transformation. So
it's just not personal though, because 60% of it is professional. And so we really help people scale their businesses and take it to the next level. We help them understand some of the processes, some of the networking that they need to do, some of the consistency or the lack thereof. And we help them develop a plan and a strategy. And we teach them how that we develop thematic months in our mastermind, how now we're 6 months out. We're ahead 6 months so our team can work on the things, the blogs and the Facebook Lives and the Alexa briefs and all the things that we do for marketing. We teach people how to do that. And then we hold them accountable. We do Brian Moran's 12-week year where we help you focus on the task and the lead indicators. The goal will take care of itself if you'll do the task every day. And so we help people really get focused and pair off the things that are the shiny object syndrome and work on that main thing. Instead of being an inch deep and a mile wide, we reorient their focus and now we're an inch wide and a mile deep. And we really focus on that niche market and they get really successful. We had one guy named David Kincaid, lived in Alberta, Canada, and he joined our mastermind group and it took a quarter of his income to join the mastermind. And I said, are you sure you want to do this? He said, I've tried everything else and nothing else works. So at that time, this is years ago, at that time he was making $18,000 a year. Wow. And I said, that's a lot of your income to join at this time. And he said, I got to do it. 18 months later, he was doing $300,000 a year.
Wow.
And so we got him focused. You see, we held him accountable and we helped him. See, when we don't have anybody doing those things, we're left to ourselves, and it's just really hard to have that level of focus when you're alone.
Oh, absolutely. I have a couple of weekly accountability partners. They're all separate. I eventually would like to get them all in one chunk because it takes up a lot of the week, you know?
Right.
But if it weren't for having to report back to them, just like you said, then I wouldn't get half of these things done because
you wouldn't. You don't want to be a loser. You don't want to go in the meeting and go, I didn't do it. And so because you did it, then it forces you to stay accountable, and then you have success as a result of it. And so
there's times when I didn't look back at what I committed and I did it anyway, just subconsciously went through, and that was in my mind where it wasn't before. I'm so glad you brought up the business part of masterminds, because I wanted to ask you about one of the things you help people do is identify their ideal avatar client. Yes. And then beyond just identifying that person, how to attract them. Talk to us about this.
Well, what I did early on in this space, and I'll just be totally transparent and authentic with your audience as well. So I was in bricks and mortar for about 35 years. And geographically speaking was what I was interested in because we had retail outlets. But when I got into this online space about 7 years ago, I didn't know anything about anything, but I'm a fast learner and I'm very committed. And I said, I'm going to learn how to navigate this. Well, initially I was just shooting a shotgun. I just said, hey, if you're hearing my voice, I can help you. Well, that didn't work out so well. because I didn't have the right avatar. And so when I narrowed that focus and I specifically said, no, these are the people I can help, between this age, and this is the worth, and et cetera, I really designed out the avatar. Now, not only can I help that person, is I know where to go find them, right? Because now we can identify who that avatar is and the places that they're at and how we can find them. And so if you're not shooting a rifle, and you're shooting a shotgun, you can't be all things to all people. You just can't do it. The people that really pay me the most money is the niche market, the ones that I've identified. So we need to spend time identifying who your avatar is. There's a guy, this is kind of funny, and you may have heard of this. I go to all these conferences around, I travel and speak, and I get an opportunity to meet a lot of cool people. But this gentleman has a podcast, he's going to get a plug right now, called Chicken Whisper.
Okay.
And I'd never heard of that. And I'm like, what is that? And they said, he teaches you to raise chickens in your backyard. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. That's a job. And last year, he did $1 million in revenue teaching people on his podcast and his newsletter how to raise chickens. A very niche market, right? He knew who his avatar was. Yeah. It was people that wanted to raise chickens in their backyard. There's toll booth operators. I'm like, you got to be kidding. No, there's a girl here in Nashville that does coupons. I'm like, who doesn't know how to use a coupon? And so she started a business, Franklin, Tennessee. Last year, she did over $1 million in revenue, teaching people how to use coupons. Today, Target and Walmart pays her $1 million to advertise on her Facebook group with 350,000 participants in her group. Right? It's very niche. And so we help you identify who your avatar is. And then we help you then go out and enlist the people through all the marketing strategies that we use. We have 10 top strategies that we use. We use LinkedIn, we use Facebook Live, podcast interviews. I've done over 2,000 podcast interviews in the past 6 years. Wow. And that's the way we promote our business. So I teach you how to do that in the marketing skills. I teach you how to build a press kit and how to make it really easy for the podcast host or whatever platform that you're going to be on. I help you understand how to do Facebook Lives and interact with the people that you're doing that with and how to enlist the people that are following you there. So it's just this mastermind playbook has really taught people the value first and foremost of masterminds, and then it teaches you the strategies to use to enlist people. The biggest fear that people have in masterminds is I don't have all the answers. And the group is not about you. The group is about the consensus of the multitude. Right. It's about everybody. See, it would be group coaching, Reina. It would be like you inviting 10 guests to your house and they sit at your dinner table and they look at you to answer every question. That would be fun, right?
Right.
It's the same way in masterminds. See, what you don't have, a lot of you, is the framework. We've positioned the framework, and then we give you the themes, the questions, the reading assignments, the accountability tools. We give you that 2.5 years worth of material that you can use so you don't have to create anything. What most people don't have is the framework that we've put together to run these mastermind groups. And that's what we've been able to do in the mastermind playbook. So developing your avatar and then helping you enlist and get the people to join your group.
That's incredible. Now, I know that one of the things, even though now you have is it mostly online masterminds now?
It's all online.
All online. But one of the things that you also promote is the unique experiences with the members in person, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, yes, we do 2 live meetups. And so we have unique activities that we do at the live meetup. So there's a property in Nashville called the Gaylord, and it's a very nice property, and we lease one of their spaces, and we bring everybody to Nashville twice a year. So we'll have, 90% of the participants here, and they come at my expense. And so all they got to do is get here, and then we pay for their hotel, we pay for the food, the speakers, and we bring in people like Pete Vargas and Mike McAllowitz and Brian Moran and Dan Miller and Ken Davis. And, we bring in all kind of people that speak. And oftentimes we have so much talent from within, we have our own speakers, at the live event. And we teach people how to do exercises like the duct tape session. And if you're not familiar with that, you have to sit and be quiet. and every other member in your group points out your superpowers, your Achilles heel, your blind spots, the things that you need work on and you can't answer, right? Again, metaphorically speaking, it's the duct tape. You got duct tape on your mouth and you can't speak, and you just have to listen. One of the most profound exercises that we do another exercise called Come As You Will Be in 2020. Let me explain what that is. In 2015, I stood before our mastermind group, and hypothetically, I acted like it was 2020, 5 years later, and I had to tell about my life. And what we've done, though, is we've had these goals in family and faith and fitness and friends and finances, these areas, these big areas. And I say as though today, this is 5 years forward. I say, I'm making today this much money. I've written this many books. I'm driving this kind of car. I live in this type house. And you project what your life is like. And then you got to go back and you got to implement a plan and a strategy to get there. Now we work on that strategy. Here's what's cool about it. That was the most profound exercise I personally have ever done. I doubled what I said it was going to be. And I've still got about 6 months left in 2020. I said I wanted 10 mastermind groups. We're about to launch 19. I said I wanted to make this much money.
6 months to go.
I got 6 months to go. That's what I'm saying. See, then you hold your counterparts accountable by saying, hey, you said you wanted to do this. You were going to make this much money. And then you just stay on your task and you stay on your, not chasing the shiny objects. And you say, no, this is what I'm going to do.
What is a couple of common shiny objects that you see people running?
Technology is a real big common shiny object syndrome. Reina, you could get off this call and you could go and say, hey, I heard about this and I'm going to do that. It had nothing to do with your vision or your mission or your long-term strategy. It's just all these things will work, but it doesn't mean you have to do all of them.
Yeah.
Right? There's certain things, there's platforms that we use. There are countless platforms out there, but I don't have to be on all of them. There's 3 of them: podcast, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Those are the 3 primary platforms that I'm on. There's so many more that I could use. New technology.
You can waste your time on.
Yeah, and it's like, that's just a distraction. And then you go back and look at your written goal and you'll go, it's not on my written plan. I'm not going to do it. See, saying no is the best thing you could possibly do. Is paring off things, not adding more things. Gary Keller wrote The One Thing. We need to focus on the thing that's going to get you there the fastest, that you don't get distracted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I've seen that all the time where, well, this company's doing this and that company's doing that. And they're possibly a company selling a completely different level of service. And so,
Sure.
This works for that level, but it doesn't work for that level.
Right.
And so balancing that shiny object syndrome with moving forward in business, don't scratch the itch.
Right. So we've got to stay in our lane of genius.
Yeah.
There's a zone of competence that you could do, but that doesn't mean it's your lane of genius.
I love that.
And if it's not giving you energy, right, that's how you tell. If it's giving you energy, that's your lane of genius. If it's your zone of competence, you could do it, but it's like sucking the life out of you. You're not going to last long term. And so I delegate everything out to our team except for what only I can do. Now, no, right now, some of you are saying, I don't have a team. I didn't either 7 years ago. And today, I did those things initially until I could delegate it out and only do the things that give me energy, my zone of genius.
And so you have plan, right? Is like, as soon as I can, I'm going to delegate this thing first.
Exactly.
And then that, and then that.
Exactly. I just gave up my email. And so now my executive assistant is going through everything. She creates a folder for me and says, these are the things that I can't do, only you can do. Now I don't have to go through every single thing and answer every single question. And that took a lot of commitment for me to give that up, because very difficult to do. But it's that way in everything that we do. You just have to start out small and delegate the things and grow your team. So, and some of you are going to go like, I don't want a team. I'm going to do it myself. Well, that's okay. You're just going to have to go a little bit slower. And there's going to be some things that you're going to have to do that you don't necessarily love. It just depends on what you're looking for.
Right. And you're probably going to be drained and not giving attention to those other areas. Like you said, that person that helped the guy making millions to balance with the family life, and he helped him and vice versa. And then the health. And we have to, like you said, stay in the lane of our genius in each area so that we can show up fully present as God intended us to be, you know, fully present with our family, fully present with our clients, fully present with those who are our friends or in our mastermind. And
Right.
if we are constantly doing those shiny objects that are draining us and not our genius, it's going to be
Right.
really hard to show up in all areas with full presence.
Raina, I want to suggest to your audience that they do an inventory of themselves and their motivation and the reason they're doing things. I came home years ago with a pocket full of money to a house full of strangers. And I want to encourage your audience not to do that, because what's the point? Like, you make a lot of money, and if you are offering your family at the altar of, you know, making a fortune, and you really don't know them, and somebody else is carrying little Tommy to baseball practice, and your daughter is, you know, having a piano recital, and you're too busy at work to go, that's going to come back to haunt you long term, because your family has a memory, but the office doesn't. And I can make money. I can make more money. I can start businesses, but I only got one go through with my family, right? It's not a trial run. This is it. I mean, we're living it right now, and you don't get a do-over. And many, many times, you know, it's opportunities that are missed that you're going to lay on your deathbed one day and have regrets. And I don't want you to have regrets. I don't want any of you to have those regrets. One thing that I did do well is I always made myself available to my daughters. They call me at any business we had. I'm available. You know, I'll put the customer off. If they call right now, I'm going to have to put you on hold. But I'm just saying, they're the most important. And our actions are what is screaming at our children and screaming at our spouse. Like, you can say whatever you want is important, but your actions, what shows what's important to you. And so I just want to encourage you to do an evaluation personally and really define what's important to you.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. That has been a wealth of information in a short time. Where can people find, I mean, you've referenced a lot of things. Where can they find you on the platforms that you're on? And I know that we're going to get a link up that people can see, at least on the YouTube for the Roku. Just let them know that where they can find you.
Yeah, well, thank you. 2 places you can find me. If you're interested in starting your own mastermind, themastermindplaybook.com is a really good place to go. If you're wanting to reach out to us to find out more information about coaching or find out more information about masterminds, I'm happy to talk to you. viewfromthetop.com is the easiest way to find me. I'm very easy to find. If you'll Google Aaron Walker in Nashville, Tennessee, my phone number is available. My email is available. I've made myself very accessible, and I'm easy to get a hold of, and I'd love to talk to you. So masterminds, go to themastermindplaybook.com, viewfromthetop.com if you're interested in joining our mastermind or coaching.
Wonderful. And those lists that you were saying, the self-assessments earlier, can they find those on the
They can find those at viewfromthetop.com.
Viewfromthetop.com.
Right.
Amazing. Thank you again, Aaron. We really appreciate having you on the show.
Thanks, Reina.
Thank you all out there for watching. And until I see you again, may the Lord bless and keep you, cause his face to shine upon you, and nourish your soul.